Black Phoenix had tagged me in this story on Twitter, and he had one of my thoughts about this. And I said, I already know where they're headed with this, just reading the title alone, because it's actually going to echo something of a story that I did um, about a little over a month ago. But I'm going to talk about that towards the end of this article. But this man's name is Bernell Tramell. And as you can see right here, he is a black man, and he was a 45 supporter and from Milwaukee. And he was recently murdered, and now they are calling for a federal investigation to be done of the murder of this man. Now, that really raised some concern for me. Not the fact that they want to do an investigation, but they want to do a federal investigation for this guy. I said, how ironic they want to do a federal investigation for this guy. I said, I know why they're doing it. That's because he's a Trump supporter. I said, if he was a Biden supporter, they would not raise or try to do no federal investigation. They probably wouldn't really look into this thing at all. Bernell Tramell, age 60, a dreadlocked activist known for carrying handmade signs through the streets, reading Vote Donald Trump 2020 and posting them on his storefront, was gunned down by an unknown assailant on his sidewalk Thursday afternoon. Because of Tramell's well-known political activism and possibility that his murder could be politically motivated, I respectfully request that United States Attorney Matthew Kruger open an investigation, chairman of the Republican Party of Wisconsin, Andrew Hitt, said late Friday. No American should fear for their personal safety because of where they live or their political affiliation. You know, it's funny they said that, yet you have a lot of people who are 45 supporters who would act in the same exact way against somebody else who does not support him. It's very interesting how that plays out. But let me continue. Kruger spokesman Kenneth Gale said he could not comment on Hitt's request. Tramell was a familiar figure in Milwaukee's River West neighborhood, frequently pedaling a bicycle or walking the streets with signs proclaiming his eclectic religious and political thoughts. He had a lot of different views, local writer Adebisi Agoro told the Post, but it was his last view that made people be outrageous with him. The pro-Trump signage was stirring up angry posts on neighborhood Facebook posts, Agoro said. On Monday, a man followed Tramell around town holding a sign reading "Psych," local slang for not or as if, to counter it. That's my first time reading an article where they actually had to break down what psych meant, as if we didn't know what it meant. Tramell didn't have internet, he didn't have a phone, he didn't have a dime to his name, Agoro said, but he got his message out. A new GOP outreach office opened this year to try to make inroads into the African-American electorate. It's just blocks from the building where Tramell lived and was killed. This is personal, he told the Post. Hitt, a former Milwaukee prosecutor, turned to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Wisconsin Friday in the face of silence from the city's police department. I know how these investigations work, he said. The lack of information is concerning. We don't know any of the circumstances of how he was murdered. Police, who had no suspects in custody as of Friday, did not respond to requests for comment, but the Milwaukee Office of Violence Prevention was aware of at least one public dispute over Tramell's Trump signs, the unit director Reggie Moore told the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. He's a black elder who did deserve to die the way that he did. On Thursday, hours before Tramell's death, Agoro filmed an interview with him about his support for Trump. I believe that Trump is the sign of the times, Tramell said in the clip, adding that Trump's respect for rapper Kanye West and former aide Omarosa Manigault Newman made him a worthy candidate. Wow. I will not be so disrespectful because this man is now deceased, but that was a huge reach right there. Let me read that again. I believe that Trump is the sign of the times, and he said that the respect for Kanye West and former aide Omarosa Manigault Newman made him a worthy candidate. This actually goes back to a video Quest X just recently did when he said that a lot of these 45 supporters literally give this man so many crumbs that they could literally make a loaf of bread with all of the little achievements that he does. And then just say that he's the best thing walking. This is going to be a motivating factor for us as we organize in central Milwaukee and across Wisconsin. I think it will give folks in the black community who support the president's message more resolve and more determination than ever. Why? Because he supports someone who needs to take his medication and a woman who used to just kiss his ass proverbially before Candace Owens came along and replaced her. But anyway, let me tell you this, what I believe. If y'all remember, over a month ago, I did a video talking about this black cop or this black security guard who was killed by these other black men when, you know, it was it was right at the height of George Floyd, when all of the uprising was still going on. And that man, he was killed. And you had people literally, mainly palm colored, saying how they need to get justice for this man. They's like, what about this man's life and everything like that? I'm sitting there saying, why are they pushing so much for justice to come before this black man? What's so special about him? And then when I looked and saw who killed him, I was like, oh, that's why, because the killers were black. Now, what's this one is, they noted this guy, of course, he's black. He's a 45 supporter, at least recently, and he was killed. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to do effectively the same thing. They are probably hoping and banking that the person who killed him is possibly black too, because they know how on a majority level, a lot of black people don't care for 45, and they really don't care for black people who like 45 either. So they're probably banking on that as well. So in my eyes, they don't really care that this man died. They only care because, like I said before, he's a 45 supporter, and they're hoping that it's probably a black person that did it. They probably wouldn't care if it was a white person that did it, if they at all, but it adds a little bit of a kick if the person is black. If I didn't mention in the video I did about the one in Florida with the 230 plus felonies, but my subscribers were informing me that when they were looking in the comment section of various maybe articles or videos pertaining to this, they saw a lot of white people leaving comments saying, oh, they were hoping that it was either going to be black people that did it or Hispanic people that did it. They really want us to be the savages that mainstream media makes us out to be. I bet they were mad as hell when they found out that the people that committed those murders down in Florida were white. That's why they'll back away from that story, because they can't push that narrative. Like, that's why they hang on to Chicago so much, because that's the only time they really think they can push it. If Chicago was not reflective of the mindset of what they think it is, as far as if it was mainly white people doing it, they would not talk about it. And it's still up in the air, because I still stand by what I say when I said it's the gangs and the departments that's doing this, at least the vast majority of it. And I'm not going to say all of it, but I'm going to say they're involved, definitely. But see, whenever it involves them, they'll back away from it. They won't talk about it, and they'll make sure they'll go out of their way to make sure you don't talk about it either. But if it's about us, oh, they'll push that heavily. That's why I say they hang on to Chicago like it's a security blanket, and they don't let it go. Because that's the only talking point they can use against us. Is every time something about violence comes up, the first thing they always mention is Chicago this, Chicago that. Black on black crime, 13%, 50%. They have to hang on to that so much, as if you cannot look onto the FBI crime stats and see that the gap with murder as far as or homicides is not a huge gap. We only exceed them by what, 4 or 5%. They act like we exceed them by well over 50%. I'm like, if y'all are so holy and saved and sanctified like you portray yourselves to be, your numbers should not be that high. And then they'll come out with some other BS stat to try to justify why their numbers are that high. But it's nothing but a song and 360 degree dance with them. And that's something else that Quest X talked about in his video. Don't debate with these individuals, because you'll be talking in circles and they'll just drive you up the wall. So I said, just don't even bother it. But as for this situation right here, I don't know who did it. I'm not going to come out right and say who did it, because it could have been anybody. It's a lot of people that don't like 45, not just black people, and not just because this guy happens to be black, but it's a lot of people that don't like 45. And like I said, it could have been anybody, but they are going to have their crosshairs in, hoping that it's a black person. See, they're living their best lives right now, because see, schools haven't been open since the virus kicked off, so they can have a breather right now. Because last year those school shootings was kicking their ass. Like, you couldn't go a week or a month without hearing at least one or two, maybe even three school shootings happening. But thanks to this virus and schools being closed, they got a breather. They got a break. That don't mean they won't kickstart back up when the time is right.